Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, over the past week, we have seen the reactions to the new Super Mario Bros. Movie trailer. We've seen a lot of damage control. We've seen a lot of downplaying. We've seen a lot of situations in which, like, the audience or the community is trying to pretend this movie is not very good. And that clearly isn't the case, looking at the footage, looking at, like, what they're doing with this. I've seen all sorts of weird agendas being pushed. Sean Malmstrom and his, like, ridiculous power of myth complaining about like Donkey Kong appearing, like, oh, Donkey Kong, he's not a Mario character, which which is a weird coming from someone like Maelstrom. But I have seen a lot of weird complaints about this movie. The voice acting thing is probably the most notorious, but I think the new prominent thing, the thing that's really permeating message boards and the like, is the whole Princess Peach thing. And I do think I've seen enough of it now where I do think this is an attempt at subverting the audience. I do think that the people on message boards complaining about Princess Peach's portrayal are not real fans. I'm at that point now where I've seen enough of people like talking about this, of trying to pretend that, like, oh no, Princess Peach, she's nothing like she is in the games. Like, I've seen enough people like that where I'm just like, no. I just like the voice acting thing, I am straight up denouncing that. If you say there's anything wrong with the way Princess Peach looks or acts in Super Mario Bros., the movie, you are straight up delusional. And this kind of goes into a problem I've been noticing when it comes to a lot of Nintendo games, most prominently Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But there have been a handful of other examples, including Bayonetta 3 and a handful of other entries in which there is a very, very big push among the community to pretend that Nintendo is going woke. Uh, Over the past couple of years, that's been like what I've been seeing on message boards is that, like, oh man, Nintendo, it's going woke, it's going to go become extremely paused. Nintendo has like is catering to the Californians. Like, that's that's what I'm seeing. Like, every major release is like some ridiculous claim that Nintendo is like pandering to like woke liberal mobs with their creative decisions or their designs. And like with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I was told pre-release that, like, oh man, there are no attractive females. They got rid of the "Are you a boy or a girl?" screen. Like, they did this and they did that. And then I played the game and realized that, like, none of that was actually true. Like, completely seriously. Like, it was so greatly exaggerated that I couldn't take it seriously, honestly. That's kind of where we're at now. If you look at 4chan, if you look at like Niche Gamer, you would think that Nintendo is the only company censoring games or having a liberal agenda, because this company is the only one of those communities talk about. Like, when you get down to it, it feels like uh, Pretendos have kind of co-opted like the anti-SJW movement to try and downplay major Nintendo releases. They're doing everything they can to try and talk down to upcoming Nintendo products. It's really bizarre how this has turned out, because there are so many Japanese companies now that I would straight up declare to be woke, but Nintendo isn't one of them. And it's weird how you really get this impression looking at like the community and what they come up with. It's that, like, you really do think that, like, you really would think, if you were like not well informed on the subject, that, like, yeah, Nintendo is woke. Like, oh man, they're going downhill. They're having all these problems. Like, no, it's not true at all. And I think people really need to realize this. Wokeness is the result of, people on the team like actively pushing for an agenda. Like, once those people go away, once they move on to something else, once they do something else, like, things will go back to the way they were. Like, that's the reality of it, is that, like, without like specific people in power, wokeness goes away. We've kind of already seen this with Twitter and stuff like that. Japanese Twitter. has made adjustments where they're no longer pushing political topics and it's all like entertainment news now. That's kind of what I expect to happen in the long term when it comes to this kind of thing. Is that like these kind of people can only infiltrate long running franchises and they can't stay there forever pushing for the same things. Like over the past decade, we've kind of seen this where we've gone from like, feminist pushing agendas to like tranny pushing agendas. And I think in another 10 years, we're going to either go to somewhere else or what I think is more likely is that there will start to be pushback to this. And I do think people need to understand this is that the pushback has already begun. Like I'm seeing Japanese games that go woke, like really starting to lose their audience and really starting to alienate their fans. I do think it's only a matter of time until like the Japanese begin to understand what like wokeness is and they begin to stand in like solidarity with us. Like how exactly are Trails games going to come over here if they bomb in Japan, all right? Like I saw a 4chan thread about like how the newest Trails game is like has gone woke and stuff like that. If the series goes downhill, like if it starts bombing in Japan before it can get an official localization over here, how exactly is it going to succeed in like any capacity? Like these companies are gonna lose money before they even leave Japan. Like that's kind of where we're at this, and we're at with this. And with like Rune Factory 5, we've already seen like if they go woke and they go through this process of like, having a lower standard of quality, like people are going to stop supporting the product. It's not like we're blind consumers. Like I think niche Japanese brands don't have the capability to go woke as readily as like Western ones. And like now we're seeing like I've heard stories about how like the ESG system is a failure and how it's not really controlling anyone and how like they're scaling back on it and trying something else. I don't know how true that is. I haven't really like been able to look into it. I haven't seen any real evidence for that yet. But like, I've played too many Nintendo games to think that like this claim that like Nintendo specifically is going woke to be true. Like the worst thing we've had is like some weird like pronoun shit and some gender options. That's it. And that's bad, obviously. Like that needs to stop. But I do think already we're kind of seeing a big pushback to this. I do think it's the ball has already gotten rolling. Is that like I do think eventually that it is going to collapse among itself. Now, obviously, the audience needs to like stand up to SJW stuff and things like that. It's not like I do feel very strongly about that. But the thing is, it feels like Pretendos are weaponizing this very real thing, this like distaste for SJW like control over media to try and like push their own bullshit, like trying to destroy Nintendo. And and that's not really what you should be focusing on doing, honestly. I think the main thing to focus on now is like educating more people as to what woke is. I just had my conversation with my grandmother about this, about how older people don't actually know exactly what woke means. Like just letting people know and like letting like the anti woke feelings kind of grow and like escalate and like be debunked as they say. I don't expect this narrative will last forever. In fact, I think in this decade we've already kind of seen like a lot of scaling back on like SJW stuff. I don't think it's going to be sustainable. I think more people are pushing back against it, and I I want going forward to push back against this idea that like Nintendo specifically is going woke because I've seen no evidence of that. Most other people I've never like Nintendo's publishing Bayonetta 3. I've seen people say Bayonetta 3 is censored, and that just straight up is not true. Like Nintendo Nintendo has done nothing wrong in spite of what you say.